That was the only job I ever had. That was 20 years.
Is that where your ex-wife lives now?
No, actually, she's in Colorado now too.
Okay.
Where my daughter is.
Okay.
So she just finished college out there. So I'm very proud of her. She's done very well.
Yeah.
And we get along really well. And we talk a lot on the phone. She's doing well. So, but she loves Nantucket. Nantucket is her favorite spot in the whole wide world too, though.
Oh, how can it not be?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you found that out, didn't you?
I sure did.
You were running. Actually, why don't you tell me a little bit about what you did before you left Nantucket? Was it only a year, or was it 2 years that you've been gone?
No, I was only gone for a year.
For a year.
For 5 years, I was the manager, the station manager at Colgan Air out at the airport.
Yeah.
And I also had the privilege of running the Nantucket Emergency Food Pantry.
Yeah.
So I had both of those jobs, which I really loved both of them. They were great, great jobs. And
well, that's where I met you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, I did that for 5 years. And again, remind yourself now, this is the second job I ever had in my life. You know, was going managing Colgan and doing the food pantry.
Right.
So I had this fantasy of what it would be like to live in a warm climate. Because I love the beach. I love the beach. And I love to walk. I walk every day, 2, 3, 4 miles every single day.
Do you?
I've done that for 8 years now. So anyway, it just sounded really appealing and appetizing. So I moved down.
Really,
there.
that was it? You just didn't want to deal with the winters up here anymore?
I really wanted to try another area of the country, and I wanted to try an area that was warm.
Right.
And I'm glad I did. I mean, I have no regrets. It was, you know, it was a good year.
Where'd you go?
I went to Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
And I had a great job down there. It was, you know, a very interesting job.
What was that?
I worked for a Covenant House down there. Covenant House is a shelter for runaway and what they refer to as throwaway kids.
Really?
And there are 12 Covenant houses in the United States. And the one in Fort Lauderdale is right on the Fort Lauderdale beach. So, and of course, it's like a magnet. It attracts all kinds of kids. They come down, they figure, well, if we have to live on the streets, we'll live on the streets of Fort Lauderdale because at least it's warm.
Right.
So, it was a great job. It was very, very rewarding. I first started there going out in their van looking for kids who would be sleeping under underpasses in abandoned buildings, you know, like abandoned Kmart's. Yeah.
I mean, are there that many kids?
Oh, God. Oh, my God. You can't believe how many there are. I couldn't believe how many there are. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Oh, my God.
But a lot of them, you know, as I said, there's 12 of these in the United States, and a lot of the kids are attracted to Fort Lauderdale, again, because of the weather, of course. And they just think it's going to be a great place to live on the street. But these kids have, for the most part, have had no life at all. You know, most of them have, you know, addiction situations.
Right.
A lot of the girls are pregnant or do have kids already. And, you know, we're talking 13, 14 years old.
Is that the average age of the kids?
Most kids are between 13 and 18.
Yeah. That tough age where
a real tough age. They've had little or no education.
Yeah.
They've come from a real tough background. And they're tough kids.
Right.
You know, because they've learned to survive that way.
Right.
And it's really tough to see them. But deep down inside, you know, there's a lot of good in them too. It's just that they've never had a chance. Never had a chance at all.
Now, it's interesting to me that you would go from running the food pantry here, you know, a service kind of volunteer type situation to almost like, I don't know if that was a paid position down there for you at the Covenant.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't do it for the money.
No, exactly.
It's rewarding. It's very rewarding, though. It really is.
Yes.
And, you know, if you can make a little bit of a difference in some of those kids' life, because for the most part, Gino, those kids have no chance at all. I mean, they really don't. They've got no education. They've got a tremendous amount of burdens on them. They don't know what it is to live whatever a normal life might even be.
Right.
And they're very vulnerable. They've been out living on the streets, some of them since they were 8 or 9 years old. Wow. And they really don't trust anyone because they've found that a lot of people can't be trusted.
Right.
And what happens to a lot of them, the great majority of them, is they start living on the streets. They have no money. They have no food. They meet someone who provides for them a little bit in the way of, a little bit of food, and unfortunately, a little bit of drugs.
Is there a lot of drugs down there?
Yeah, there are.
There's people preying on those kids that are...
They're really preying on them, and then when they get them just a little bit on their side, then they start prostituting them out, the males and the females.
Oh, do they really?
Oh yeah, and that's the biggest problem. And that, now they've got them hooked. They've got them completely hooked, and they keep coming back. And it's a shame, and that's why the kids don't trust anybody.
Right.
Because they are very vulnerable, and they found out that they can't trust anybody. It's not a pleasant life out there in the streets. And by the time they come to a place like Covenant House, they've experienced an awful lot. An awful lot. As I said, for the most part, they're deep down inside. They're good kids that just never had a chance.
Right. And how do you guys give them a chance?
Well, as I said, when I first started, I was going out in the van trying to find kids, which isn't too hard.
Right.
The hard part is trying to get them to come off the streets and into a structured environment. Because they've never had a structured environment. They don't know what that is.
Right.
They've really never had any discipline.
And that is, do you think it's discipline?
Well, I mean, they've never had any structure. Structure is the main thing.
Right.
But, again, for them, though, Gino, they're scared.
Mm-hmm.
They're untrusting.
Right.
And
they don't trust any adults.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No. So sometimes you might see the same kid out on the beach or out on the street 10 or 15 times before they'll, say, all right, I'll give it a chance. And by that time, they're exhausted. They're tired. They're hungry. They're sick. They have no clothes left. I mean, they're really at the end of their road at 13 or 14 or 15 years old.